Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bobby News weather update. I'm starting off with 2023 here because we had an El Nino year, which you can see a lot of warmth in this area. And here's 2024, La Nina. And you can see this trade wind here that starts up, and that changes a lot of things around the planet. So let's get into it. To start, we've got a little fuzziness going on up here because the stream has been lowered with La Nina. So let me show you 2023. Very pronounced. A little bit colder up here. Now you can see it's kind of fuzzed in. Now, I want to go through the current weather pattern. So this was a hurricane that came up, and I want you to look at this front line because La Nina seems to push everything down much further. And it's up right now for this because there's a hurricane, but I want to show you what happens after it comes by. That's it later in the day. You can see this front coming through. Now look at how far down it's pushing. Whereas last year, the frontal lines kind of stayed up here, and we had storms kind of move along this trajectory. Now it's way down, and the storms seem to be missing us. And we've had a lot of drought. Even this coming through didn't hit me very hard. And here's a couple days after, the 9th. So it was September 6th through the 9th. So it moves on out, and look how low this is. And it's pushing down hard on the Gulf, especially. Look at what's forming. This is the 9th. So La Nina again pushes down, and we get this trade wind that I think just the whole world is windier. It's weird. And I don't know if that's because of the orbit of the Earth around the sun is different. Jupiter could be hanging on one side versus the other, but it seems to be every 2 years we get a shift from El Nino to La Nina, and I haven't figured out why. In 2023, for example, I find that El Nino years, everything seems to be a lot higher up. So is the planet just on a wobble and we're getting wobbled down further some years versus others? Or is it the trade winds blowing the water around so we get it lower on this side and it's just lower up here because we're not getting the same stagnation of heat over here that pushes further north? We don't know. But it's possible that, like a top, it doesn't spin perfectly. It does wobble a little bit. And I think the Earth wobbling in rhythm would give us a 2 year cycle like this. Now, the second part I want to look at is Africa and Spain. Because you can see there's blue there. And it's a lot hotter here. A lot hotter everywhere. So I would expect there to be more activity. And we did get some extra activity. But you can see it was all out here in the basin, very little in the Gulf. So I'm kind of leading to one of my points here is that it seems like La Nina years, we have our storms in the Gulf more. Let me show you 2017, which was a La Nina year. So again, we're on the chart here, La Nina, 16 to 18, and it seemed like everything was kind of going along this track versus last year, an El Nino year, everything's kind of out here. There's another factor that I'm realizing, and that is that no matter what it is, El Nino or La Nina, there is a stronger version versus a weaker version. So those trade winds, regardless of what they are, can be strong or not so strong. And the stronger they are, I'm finding the storms get whipped way out to the right with that strong trade wind. If it's not as strong, it seems like these things are forming better because there's less wind shear or whatever the reason is. And then again, for La Nina years, it seems like the Gulf is more active because we're getting that pressure from the low front. And low front as in it's low geographically. Let me show you this picture again. So again, it's pushing way down, and these systems, we're either getting lake effect up here in the northeast, or we're not getting anything, because the systems are kind of moving down and around the northeast right now. All year it's been like this. It was not like this at all last year. So if the frontal or the jet stream is lower versus a little higher, we get destroyed with storms all season versus this. So something else that's happening right now too. This has been consistent, and we got that little swirly. Now the same thing could apply to the current hurricane starting up down here, where again, this is getting pushed really low, and it puts a lot of pressure down here to get one of these to spin up, I think. There's also a perfect storm happening where this is a hurricane, and as it spins, it's throwing a ton of moisture into this one. So it's like two of them working together on either side of the continent. And I think that's giving it more juice. You can kind of see how it is rotating with it. So this is rotating, throwing a lot of pressure down here. And then that is forcing this to rotate more and have more juice behind it. But then you're also getting pressure from this side. Sandwich, you get a spin. So I expect that to be tough. And again, we're La Nina year, so the Gulf is the trajectory we're looking at. Strong push, like nothing even came close. And I'll show you that in El Nino years as well. But not right now. I want to show you Alaska. This is another sign that the trade winds have moved, because usually these storms will spin, and you can see all the broken up land here from all the storms that just smash over and over again. But this year I've been seeing some float a little higher. And what that means is not only is it being pushed up by something, but the pressure of these systems is being pushed higher on the continent, and there's a whole mountain chain here. So you're just feeding this tube up top. Rather than smacking into it here, it would create more of like a smooth across the continent. Oh, I can't. Haha, I'm not on the thing. Here we're pushing up top. So Alaska's been probably getting more rain than normal. And just weird. The jet stream is higher here, which makes it lower over here. I don't know. Is it because there's so much being pushed up top that it's just coming straight down hard versus this? I don't know how that would be different, because this feels like it would have more pressure. But the mountain chain, maybe there isn't that up here. So maybe things are moving faster and creating more pressure in here that's going to push down further. I don't know. But it's been cold. So we're getting more air out of Canada pushing down on us. And I think this is part of it. So, the Atlantic cycle impact. Let's look at that for a second. Last year, it was warm around Spain. This is sea surface temperature too. This isn't the actual water. I'm looking at sea surface because that is what the storms are using most to get started. And we are very warm in and around here, where these two hurricanes are currently forming. Or this one formed and is dying, and this one's forming to go up to the Gulf. And the Gulf is not as warm here as I've seen in other years. So who knows what will happen to it, but it's got some juice in there, that's for sure. And then the pressure from the north should create a nice little vortex. But again, Spain, cold here. 2023, not cold. So what is that telling us? I think it's telling us with this fuzzy as well, rather than a pronounced channel line of warm air, we're getting more jet stream here. We're getting more pressure coming across that, and I think it's rotating the Atlantic cycle more, kind of like this is rotating the Pacific cycle. It's pushing a lot more water over here that's warm, and it kind of wells up over here. 2023, it was more balanced, and there was a lot more energy in the entire area versus 2024. You can even see up here, there's way more. You see these wisps? 2023, a lot less. And it looks like it's higher too. You see how that's kind of a higher line, and this is higher? And then 2024, this will drop, and this will drop. 23, 24, 23, 24. Should be lower. And it is lower, but I can't tell if that's because of the trade wind blowing it around and creating more. I don't know. But that is evidence that the planet may be getting sun at a different angle. And when you get a different angle, slightly different, it could change everything. So who knows? Or is it a sun flare? whatever it is, it's a 2-year, 3-year oscillation. So I can't really look at a 12-year planet cycle of Jupiter for that. Maybe Saturn, that's 24 years, I think, or something, like twice. I'm sure that would have some effect, but not every 2 years. So I'm still hunting on the planets affecting our distance to the sun theory. But regardless, we're getting a lot more cold flowing down. That's keeping this a lot cooler. So these storms that form out of nowhere, like we saw in 2023, these guys, there was a lot more warm air in this area. This year, there isn't. And we're seeing a lot more activity in the Gulf and down low. Is there a correlation? Perhaps. Perhaps. So let's look right here. 2023. Actually, less. So maybe it's forcing more to well here, kind of like it does down here. And that may actually make it worse for formation here, because everything's in the Atlantic cycle. It's getting spun really hard. It all just kind of collects here, all the hot air, during La Nina years. Interesting. Because again, lower frontal line, stronger frontal line. Jet stream, stronger. Okay. So, one other thing I noticed is on the weak years, it is strong. So let's look at 04, 05. It seems like there is kind of a good trade wind here on a El Nino year, 04, 05. Even though it's saying it's kind of weak. But regardless, if it said it was weak, look at that. I mean, there is just a flurry of activity. And then on a strong year, 07, 08, not as much. But strong year going over the top, not much forms out here, a lot forms down low. So there is kind of a pattern here. Let's look at another year. 2005 was a shit show. Look at that. A lot in the Gulf. Weak. Not that that has anything to do with it. So in 2012, Sandy wrecked us on a La Nina, which is kind of weird because it pushes things out on a La Nina, like we said. But you can see those lower tracks forming, one through the Gulf. Still nothing crazy about that. But a La Nina year, so the potential for something to come out of the Gulf or this region of hot air and make its way up. Don't know how that cut left. But maybe another system out here forced it left with its rotation. Who knows? But right around 16, like it's pretty quiet. And then 16, for whatever reason, it starts getting crazy. You can see that guy destroyed, but just the volume. There's a bunch of storms that year, bunch of storms this year. This kind of looks like our year, where the Gulf is really active and things coming out of this area. It was 17. That was a La Nina. Here's 18, another kind of weak La Nina year coming out of it, though, into 18, 19. So it's like in between those years, you don't know when El Nino gives up. Like it could be that the planet swings or something, whatever's happening of my planet tilt, sun flare, orbit, Nino oscillation, whatever's actually happening, it can happen mid-season. So that throws a whole wrench into trying to predict year to year. If it's like weak coming in and then it's switching mid-season, who knows? But 2018 is a weak El Nino year going into 19. So I guess the 18 here is weak as well. 19 on a La Nina year, we see a lot of Gulf activity, a lot of coming out of the air, and then absolute insanity in 2020, which is a La Nina year. La Nina year, just absolute insanity. But nothing really forming out here. We had some that were just like all of them went this way. And then 22 was also La Nina. And then last year, El Nino year. Not much in the Gulf, although we did get one, big one. But this is El Nino year. Craziness. And pretty strong, too, if it's pushing everything out. I look for ones that come straight up here. And here's 2024 so far. So again, low, getting pushed out or crushed as they make landfall. Interesting. Interesting. So the Gulf is scary during La Nina, from what I've found. And 2020, for whatever reason, was absolutely batshit crazy. Sun flare, who knows? All right, so before I end here, I'm just going to go back through all the years. El Nino, La Nina. Kind of La Nina. La Nina. El Nino-ish? Very El Nino. Little La Nina. Sorta not. Holy El Nino. There's like no trade wind that year. Okay, so this is really high. This is high. Low. Low. See what I'm saying? It does get lower. This peak, though, kind of stayed the same, so I don't know. No, it didn't. Yeah, like welled up more here and went down in these spots. Just strange. Doesn't necessarily mean planet tilt, though. I mean, look how low that is. But again, the trade wind could just be pushing it further south because you got some juice here. It blows each side further away. But why would this drop so much? Interesting. And again, cold Spain or Portugal. El Nino, warm Portugal. La Nina-ish. Could be a mid-season transition. And remember, this is the end of the summer, so it would have formed. That's kind of like a halfy La Nina, but still cold by Spain. Kind of, sorta, and cold by Spain. Kind of, sorta, very much so. Ooh, you see that shift? Look at that trade wind pushing everything over to that. Let's look at the height. Way higher up here. Way lower. Here. With the trade wind pushing it. And then no trade wind. Let me see. It's about the same, just shifted. Interesting. So planet theory may not work. And look, we're kind of slow and it's still cold in Spain. So again, the jet stream being strong, La Nina or El Nino. So that's kind of warm on a super strong La Nina. Weird. And then 07, big time La Nina, cold around Spain. See, it is colder down here. Let me see. So big time pressure in 07. And then not as much pressure. It leaves more up here. So I feel like this cycle, if there's warm here, it's going to add more warm and then you get storms forming out here. If it's La Nina, it's colder here, but all of it's welling up here, so we're getting a lot of storms kind of out of this corridor. Just general thinking. Another strong La Nina. Kind of, like, what do you even call that? It's kind of a... Yeah, like, what do you call those? That is El Nino. Like, clearly. That's La Nina. El Nino? What did they call it 2008? Not El Nino. They called it La Nina that year. So it is strong. Even though it's cooler, they're calling that El Nino and they're calling that La Nina. Hmm. That seems very La Nina. And that seems very El Nino. But I guess that current's still very strong, though warm. Or it switched mid-season. Because that is a little slower. That's super fast. Oh my god, that was fast. Look how far out this goes. This stream is strong that year. Not very strong. Even less strong. Eh. So 14 through 16 were El Nino years strong. Oh. But how do you call 16 one? It's not very strong. That's La Nina. Man, this is weird. I gotta go back through and double check, but that's weird. Like, I would think for sure. Like, that's an El Nino year for sure. 23. But all the rest of them seem like freaking La Nina. Because you got the trade winds going. So it's like most years are La Nina y. Like that, no. There's no movement in 2015. Let's see if anything crazy was happening during Sandy. Yeah, Sandy was pretty straight up. Nothing crazy. Pretty far north on the cold. And south. Interesting. So nothing really crazy. Although by then it already came through, I guess. Probably see more warmth there. It was coming up. Interesting. Anyway, lots of La Nina years of varying degrees. And then some of them are just nope. And then we're back to it again. So most years, I would expect the Atlantic cycle to be strong, and I would expect storms to come out of the Gulf. Most years. But then you get these random years, and stuff goes wild, including up here, because it gets warmer in this part of the ocean versus down here. Like that has no heat there compared to 2023. And then 2024 carries that heat with this thing. So maybe the residue of last year's El Nino is formed in the water temps. Like it's holding that energy from the year before, and then we get to this time of the year again, and it's already got a base energy level. So if you look at 2022, there's like no energy there with a strong La Nina. 2023, we get a huge El Nino and it gets hot through here. And then strong La Nina, but still a lot of heat compared to 2022. So what is it, like residual from last year? It's just hanging out and this thing just kicked on and is pushing this over? I don't know. But there's still a lot of heat there, and you got that hurricane that's fueling another hurricane. So maybe last year's heat has survived. I don't know. But that's where we're at. And Florida, careful, because the conditions are ripe for some big ones to come up through the Gulf. So we could see a hurricane here. Good luck, everybody, and be safe.